Hello, time travelers.
Hello, human.
Apparently there's only one person watching. He started building a PC part picker list, and what that is a list of parts to build a computer. And there's a website, PC Partpicker, that helps, obviously, that helps you figure out which parts are compatible. And I saw this and I was like, I've got thoughts, and I want to talk to him about it. This is the first list he sent me, and he's modified it since then. And he's made this new list. You notice it's only got 6 things, and this one has 7. By the way, if you make an account on PC Partpicker list, you can give your list a name. So you could be building a computer for yourself, or maybe have 2 different ideas, or in my case, I'd be building one for myself at the same time as building one for a cousin. You know, and that way you can modify that list without having to make a new one. But regardless, either way, if you're working on a list, you can share that list with people, and that's how I got a hold of these lists. So on to the parts. So what's the first thing that you changed? Because you mentioned that before recording.
I removed the cooler because the CPU actually came with one.
That is true, and that would be a great way to start, because you don't necessarily need it to get started. But if you do any gaming at all,
like a fan cooler, I mean.
Yeah. It comes in the box for this particular CPU. But if you do any gaming or any like streaming, will be fine. You don't use much processor for that.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna be editing video, you're gonna need a cooler, because I noticed when I built this thing, I watched the temps, and the temps when I was editing were constantly high.
Yeah, so make sure to have a fan thing with your CPU if it already doesn't come with one.
Or a water cooler.
Yeah, that too.
So,
especially if it's better PC.
Edit this part list is where you would do it and say, let's say add a CPU cooler. And you go down here, choose manufacturer if you have favorite, choose color. If you're doing a all white build or black and silver or whatever. And this is where you choose a CPU socket. In your case, it was AM4, right?
Yeah.
But if I hit yes, 120 millimeters square, about that big. And you would know, because bigger cases might or might not have a 140 millimeter slot. 240 means it's 2 fans next to each other of a 120 kind. And then the 280 is 2 140s.
Makes sense.
So most cases will take a 240. There's a bunch of options. And you sort by name or whatever, or price, deep cool, Ragen Tech. Like for me, I don't know these brands. So I go down until I would see a brand I recognize. Or you can go online and read reviews.
Or ASUS.
Let's look at the Asus one you just mentioned. It's got 2 fans on it. Oh, look at that. For of course, get it from the wrong place, you might pay too much, but look how expensive it is, $100. I've always spent about $120, $150 on my coolers, because the performance of a water cooler is just so great. But this one, if you can find it, like Newegg has it for $100, if UPS doesn't damage it, because Newegg is exclusive. UPS won't let you choose a shipper. That's my look of disapproval. But it has a programmable LCD screen on it, so you can have like little anime characters or something.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing that's going to be on it.
So my next question is, coming back to what this is used for, is why did you choose the 5700G?
It was cheaper, it was a Ryzen 7. It's been low for a while, and it had inbuilt graphics if I couldn't get a GPU.
Yep, that's exactly what I thought you were doing, built-in graphics.
And also the Ryzen 5 has much worse built-in graphics than the Ryzen 7.
Yeah, I have the Ryzen 5 with built-in graphics, the 5600G, I think.
Yeah, I looked at that one too, actually, 5600G.
I don't have it in this machine, and I have it in the one downstairs in the basement.
Yes, I specifically remember that price, $128, $129.
So this one's $178. I have it, and you're right, it's like if you needed graphics, that would be better. Now, moving on to motherboard, why did you choose a micro ATX?
Small, cheaper.
Small, cheaper?
Yeah, and also it had all I needed, really.
Well, it has less of an upgrade path.
True.
And that's why I asked, because you pay a little bit more. I'm going to go open this up on Newegg so it's easier to see. I personally don't buy stuff from Newegg as much as I used to, but They still have better pictures, also better specs.
For some reason, one only had.
Shut up, honey!
$50.
You're not in this scene. See, it's only got one PC power thing. So you're limiting your future upgrade path if you don't have 8 pins for the CPU power. I can't talk! The other thing is you're limiting your upgrade path because you only got 2 slots for memory. And you've only got one PCI by 16. These days, it's very rare if you get an upgrade, another card to put in your computer besides a GPU that it will need more than a by 1 slot like this.
Yeah.
But if you get a good GPU and throw it in there, it's going to be a chonker card. It's going to cover all of those. But if we go to Newegg, now they have a PC builder. Interesting. But I'm not going to be getting into that today. Where's the freaking... Oh, they moved it over here. Computers, components and storage, motherboards. New, obviously. AMD motherboards.
AM4.
Yeah, AM4. AM5 is brand new and is still form factor ATX, which is a full size.
That's the max that case fits.
Another thing I just thought of about this is that it's an A320. Yeah, A320 chipset. You want to try to get B450 or better because of the chipset features, like how many different things it can communicate with. This doesn't even have, yes it does. It's got a slot right here for your SSD, and that's going to go underneath and hidden behind the GPU. One of my concerns is that
sneaky.
You'd have to read the motherboard manual to find out just to be sure. But the lower chipsets, sometimes things get turned off depending on what you plug in. So I know the B450, if you have an SSD in the second M.2 slot, it turns off 2 of your SATA ports. But if we go back over the Newegg and I say B450 or B550, X470 or X570, which is what I have, and hit apply.
Yo, all 4.
Well, it's a filter, so I can see all of these. I'm not going to spend $269.
Yeah, I was gonna say 75 to 125, if possible.
Sort this by lowest price.
That is an idiot.
And you were looking at like a $65 motherboard. You could buy MSI. This MSI is nice. That's a B550 for $130. That's the lowest price.
Yeah, and it actually looks clean.
This is used refurb. I said new. What's up? Where's new, you stupid website? I checked that earlier. Let's look at this. 156 for this Asus.
The Asus.
Now, I would spend twice as much as you did on a motherboard, knowing that means I don't have to buy another board. Another board. Actually, does sound right. Another board for another
board.
5 or 6 years for me. A lot of the performance is not in the board. It's like the CPU, the GPU, and the memory, right?
Right.
But you could swap those without having to like completely remove them, gut your PC, right?
That sounds violent.
Yeah.
Because it is.
So you need 4 slots for the memory. And CPU power's 8 pins instead of 4. You got pins for RGB and stuff. You've got USB 2.0 things. You got 1, 2 of those. This is something else. And then you got another by 16 PCI slot. You've got 1, 2. Now, I probably would have opted for the MSI one because this M.2 slot is shorter. See that?
Weird.
Yeah, very weird. Unless they got one on the back of the board. No picture of the back of the board.
It means they're hiding secrets.
And that's a USB 3 header right there for the front of the PC. Now, let's move on to your next part, which is same memory I have, except I got 4 by 8 so that I can run in dual channel, which makes it run faster. So another reason to get a bigger motherboard is that you want 2 channels of memory instead of just 1. And these are gorgeous.
Yes. And technically I can get 64 gigabytes of RAM.
So could I, but it's like super expensive.
Yeah, that would be like $260? $280.
280 just for memory. That's,
$240.
Maybe I'll save up for it and upgrade my machine to get my better editing. Now you picked a M.2 NVMe SSD.
He actually has that in his PC too.
I have
a 970 Evo.
A 970 Evo right now. My 970 Pro is actually inside of this because it went bad. This is my look of disapproval. During
the human malware,
a thing happened with the manufacturer of a lot of the chips that go into a lot of things. What's the name of that company? TSMC.
Yeah.
Sorry, it took forever to remember. They had a fire. And so Samsung started putting the controller, I mean, because you got different chips on here. The memory ones are over here and the controllers are over here. And it had the same controller as the Evo. And mine went bad. It corrupted a particular part of itself. And I had to have Samsung replace it for me, and I haven't put it back in yet. But here's the 970 Evo Plus, running around $100 for a terabyte. Which, honestly, this is a good SSD.
Mm-hmm.
I would get that one to start out with.
Probably gonna put a 2 terabyte
hard drive?
Yeah, in it later.
So if I go to add additional storage, there's a 980 Pro, which is what this is.
2 terabytes.
Oh, that's a 2 terabyte.
That's why it's so expensive.
There's the 1 terabyte, which is 109, which is only $20 more for the Pro. And you get that much more performance.
12, actually, around.
$12. You're better with maths than me. But then let's say you want a 2 terabyte hard drive for your resources for all your editing.
I found one for a little under 50.
Change the form factor to 3.5.
Yeah, that's hard drive.
And then you want SATA 6 gigs a second. And you found one for how much?
50. That's the first one.
2 terabyte Seagate. I won't touch Seagate because of their failure rates being higher for everyone that I've known that's had a Seagate. And then Western Digital's good. Blue might work.
Same price too.
Yeah, the Blue might work because you're not using it for your OS or anything that's constantly reading and writing. Those you need the black ones. The different colors are different things. Like the red might work because it's designed to be used.
I don't need 22 terabytes of it though.
22 terabytes, it's $549. These are supposed to be used in a NAS, which is network area storage. That's what that means. But if you guys are trying to grab a hard drive for some particular type of device, you can Google what each color is for. See WD Black, 4 terabyte, 119. And that's 4 times the capacity, but not 4 times the price.
Yeah.
Something to consider at that point if you were about to buy it and had more money.
Mm-hmm.
So now the case. Why don't you tell everybody why you picked that particular case?
You have it, and Generic has all the things you need. Is a case.
It doesn't have a couple things. Well, there's 3 major problems with it. It has nowhere to put a 3 1/4 hard drive, or 3.5 inch hard drive. The 2.5 inch SSDs go behind the motherboard where there's no cooling. That's another problem.
Yeah, that could be bad.
It uses a negative pressure system for the airflow instead of a positive pressure system. And all of the air comes from a slit on the right side of the case because the whole front of the case is just a solid panel. Let me bring it up in Newegg and we'll discuss it. And the biggest problem with the case is that it uses unique screws instead of the standard ones.
Ew.
For everything. Like the motherboard, the threads on the motherboard standoffs, which you can't just replace the standoffs because they're part of the case. You can't just use a box, because I've got a box of all those extra screws from building every computer I've ever built.
Yeah.
They won't fit. Well, look, this one, they put grill holes on the front.
Yay. Ish.
And that's the model you picked. Okay, that's good. So the one I have is a different model.
Yeah, yours has the white on the bottom, right?
No, it's got this like colored bar to hide your cables on the inside. But the biggest thing with me is that the screws. I'm going to Newegg and I'm choosing ATX mid tower because those will fit a full ATX board, but they're not super huge.
Right. That's what the NZXT one was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is that Asus one?
This one right
Corsair.
here? Well, all right, we'll bring that up. I like Corsair cases, and I'll hit show more, put NZXT, apply filters. This is what mine looks like. It's got that red thing in there. Except this is a one where they gave you a value add by adding RGB stuff in it. And I bought it for cheaper without the RGB. But that's why I bought it, because this red thing looked cool. And then I was pissed when I couldn't get everything installed with the screws I had. And I had to figure out their screws. There's a lot of stuff to remember when you're putting together a PC. Like which screws go where.
Yeah.
And theirs looked funny. I'm like, screw these, I'm gonna toss these.
Get it? Screw these, they're screws.
Yep. This case must be newer because it says 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port. Because mine has that port, but it's got a 3.0 cable. So most motherboards don't even have a 3.1 Gen 2 port on them. You only have the one on the back of the case. You know, the one that's on the I/O panel of the motherboard, which is right here. So the motherboard you were looking at didn't even have USB-C on the back. And this random one I brought up, let's see if it does. It's got it right there.
Okay, cool.
So here's the Corsair case that we just randomly brought up.
Yeah, that looks good too.
You would have to look at it and make sure it fits full-size hard drives, like has bays for it. And you have to go through carefully and painfully, honestly, look at pictures on multiple cases on Newegg until you get one that has a bay, so the hard drive can sit right behind the front can't talk, right behind these fans. Make sense?
Yeah.
Because hard drives generate heat, and that heat is what makes the components inside fail. But the hard drive itself is a heat sink. So if you put a fan on it, 99% of your problems go away and your hard drive will last years until it fails. So your next part, I noticed you changed the power supply. So you got this one on your old list, and then this is on your new list. EVGA 500 watt, and the thermal take. Did you change it because it's cheaper?
Yeah, pretty much.
I've learned, and I used to do the same thing, that I'll spend a little bit more on a power supply and read reviews to get something that's not going to fry my components. Something that, like a power supply that's actually going to fry itself if something wrong happens. Even if I'm buying a knockoff power supply just to do some testing, I'll read reviews. If I see someone saying in the review, blah, blah, blah happened, and now the power supply doesn't work, but I don't see anybody saying blah, blah, blah happened, and now my motherboard doesn't work, I actually want to grab that power supply because it's going to sacrifice itself before it allows like a power spike to move from your GPU into the power supply and into the motherboard, you know? And you're going to need more headroom, I think, than 500 watts. If I go Google this, which is power supply calculator. Oh, Newegg has one now. Never used this one. CPU is AMD 5600G.
No, 7600.
5700G.
Oh.
HTX motherboard. And let's say you got an NVIDIA 3080 Ti, which probably you won't get one that high end. Let's say you go 64 gigs of memory someday.
DDR5. Select DDR4.
Yep. 1 terabyte solid state drive. And then, let's say, a 7200 RPM hard drive. No optical drives. See that? But if we take the GPU out of it, I don't like this calculator. Select series, less than 400. Yeah, not much.
Yeah.
So if all you're gonna do is stream and you're doing light gaming like your FNF, you're right, the GPU built into CPU is enough. But if you're ever gonna upgrade off of that game and to play something a little bit hardcore as a game, then you're gonna need a better GPU. Also, if you're gonna do any editing, this is really gonna drag down your workload, or your workflow. Your workflow is gonna suffer using that versus putting a GPU in there. And that's it. So are we missing anything? I always do it in my head. Motherboard, CPU, memory, GPU, drives, case, power supply, fans, peripherals, accessories, other, case fans. Well, there's a 3-pack iCUE, and that would be compatible with your
thing,
with your memory, because those use the iCUE. And then hit add and go back to coolers. Choose a CPU cooler, AM4, 240, and then choose Corsair so that you can use iCUE for its RGB as well. 150. That looks interesting. That block. It has RGB fans. So if we added that, and we have a white one too. That's cool. Add. Go back. Can't really add it up if there's no price available for this memory.
That would be $120.
So take this total that we have here.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, that's going to bring that up to about $800. So in your case, if you're going to cut corners in a couple places,
Quite literally,
yeah, you're not going to want to stick with a stock cooler for doing any editing. And you don't want a mini ITX board, but maybe you can get fans that are not RGB. That's going to probably knock the price in half. Get a case that is maybe not a super popular brand, but still looks kind of cool. And
that doesn't have like 5,000 negative reviews.
Right. And also will fit a hard drive that is behind the front panel so that it gets airflow.
Wait, 5,000 negative reviews would mean it's popular.
Popular for sadomasochists.
Yes.
But the cooler is 150. So I'm not even sure. Maybe you could stick with the stock cooler and have struggle face noises for a couple months and save up 150 and buy the cooler. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I did. That's it. So guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you click like on the video if you like this and hit subscribe, and change the stupid bell notification, because stupid YouTube won't tell you if I have new videos unless you change that. What did you think about all this?
Interesting.
You learned more stuff. I was actually impressed that you got all the stuff you did, and I was like, you know what? I want to ask him all these questions about why he chose these things, and I was like, but I'm gonna wait until I can film it. So it's very interesting. All right, thanks for watching, and I don't know how to end this video, which is fine because awkward end screens are better. Just if you know it's gonna be awkward, just do it awkwardly on purpose. What should I point it in the air and say other people should watch?
I don't know what you released recently.
I don't know. Some other video that I decide to put over there, and then some other video that YouTube thinks is best for you, and then you can subscribe. I can't talk.
Subscribe.
You can subscribe to the channel right there.
And subscribe to music channel if you like song.
Yeah, because I make music. All right, bye.